This week on the Legion Clubhouse, the trial of Brainiac 5. I think this whole thing is rigged from the start.
They were the heroes from the future, teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
Radical character design change. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. All character redesigns in this issue suck balls, big balls, all the way from Dream Girl's eyeshadow and tattoo to Polar Boy's ratty haircut to Saturn Girl's pantsuit. Suck balls. No one can defend any of that.
The interesting thing about it is I think these are meant to be street clothes.
Suck balls. I don't want to live in a future where we have to dress like that.
Well, this is the future of 1988. Everybody had to dress like that.
And on the plus side, none of us are going to live much longer anyway. So there you go.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. But, yeah, the interesting thing about it is Cosmic Boy is not in uniform. He is not an active Legionnaire. But his street clothes literally look like a superhero costume. And I swear to you, if you look at Timberwolf is actually dressed as Latka from Taxi with his little cap and his little thing. I don't know. I don't want to agree with you.
He's dressed more like a green or one of the guys that ran the subway in New York in the 80s. Not the Hells Angels. What were they?
The Guardian Angels.
The Guardian Angels. Yeah, that's how he's dressed.
Hi, I'm your Guardian Wolf.
He's just missing a black leather jacket.
But this issue really feels like Keith doing his Keith thing and going, okay, this is totally what regular clothes are going to look like. Because if you look throughout this issue, even though she is wearing some seriously scary eyeshadow, Dream Girl's not necessarily wearing her costume. She's wearing a dress and some heels. And Dawnstar is, I don't know what Dawnstar is doing. But if you look, Phantom Girl is wearing a T-shirt that says "I Heart" and then Ultra Boy's symbol, and it's ugly. It really is. I'm not going to agree with your words because, well, words hurt.
Balls.
But yes, Saturn Girl's pantsuit is terrible. I'm not the best at color, but even I can tell you that is a hideous, like fuchsia and blue nonsense. And she's got like a new haircut, which I'm actually kind of down with. I don't mind some of the haircuts in this issue if it weren't for the fact that everybody seems to have gone to the same George Clooney haircut place, because Shrinking Violet has the shortcut, and Polar Boy and Element Lad and even Phantom Girl looks like she's had her hair cut really short, or at least short on top. And I don't know. This
and
is
why
one
is
of those
Wildfire walking around without a helmet on?
Don't you remember Quizlet taught him how to make a solid energy form?
Oh, okay.
So he's just a guy now.
Dumb. It's all dumb.
He's wild guy.
It is so distracting. it does not do anything to help. I mean, especially coming off of issue 50, which was really, really good. And then we get into hot jurisprudence action in this issue. And then you have Brainiac 5 just basically saying, yeah, I'm out. See ya. As great as issue 50 was, if I were a quote unquote long-term reader of the Legion, this might be the point where I'm like, I think I'm out, you guys.
I was thinking about that, and I've been kind of, knowing what's coming, I've been kind of watching for I've been kind of watching for the implications that things are about to go pear-shaped. And this issue was an interesting one because it really is kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, because throughout this issue, Polar Boy is arguing what I might say, is kind of a naive, idealistic view that Legionnaires shouldn't kill.
Yeah, they all signed that oath at the beginning. Hey, we're not going to kill.
Right. And he's played in this issue as kind of a jerk and kind of overzealous and being really pushy and obnoxious. And Cosmic Boy and Saturn Girl both call him out and say, look, I wrote the Legion Constitution. You are really interpreting it in a way that is not the spirit of what we meant.
Well, now, pardon me. I'm just a poor ice-forming man from the planet Thor, and I believe that the Constitution should be analyzed and rewritten, and if so be it, by the will of the people, i.e. me, that we should be able to throw the Constitution under the bus and come up with something new. But what do I know? I'm just a poor boy from Thor.
First of all, that actually is a really good accent for Polar Boy, if it weren't for the fact that you've spent the last 2 years mocking Dream Girl with the female version thereof. But
no, that's different. She's like, hey, Shug, I understand that you don't understand how the Legion works, but let me just say that you see this tattoo on my boobie? Does that distract you? I hope it does, Shug.
So Polar Boy in this issue is played as, wrong. Not necessarily like the obvious person, you are in the wrong, but there feels like in this particular moral dichotomy, it feels like we're supposed to lean towards the quote unquote adult perspective of Brainiac and Saturn Girl, but also in entirely, just stripped down terms, Polar Boy feels like the one who's morally right. He's saying,
pardon me. Let me speak for myself, please. I'm just a poor boy from Thor. My understanding is brain dead means the rest of the body is alive. And so therefore, Brainiac, by killing the body, has killed somebody, and that body means death. In your Constitution, I'm just reading what your words say, Cosmic Boy. It says that we must punish Brainiac 5. I'm sorry, that's the way it's written.
And what this really accomplishes...
It accomplishes nothing, because here's the thing. If you're saying that it's morally wrong to use the Infinite Man in this way, there's actually been some precedent on this. There has, and this is where Brainiac 5 is coming from. And certainly around this time period, these things have happened. So the Harvard Ad Hoc Committee in 1968 said that it is totally okay that if someone is exhibiting no signs of brain activity, that you can keep the body alive to harvest it for whatever purpose that it needs to be harvested, whether that be for organs or whether that be for stem cell research or to take out the time trapper. That was then codified into law in 1981. And there was a case in 1988, which is right around the time period that this issue is coming out, in which a boy was brain dead, but the hospital would not release his body because by the time we get to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we have figured out ways to keep organs alive for much longer times outside the body. So that made transplants go through the roof, and the survivability of a transplant to go through the roof. But there was this case in 1988 where a boy had very viable organs. He was brain dead. The parents wanted to take him out of the hospital. And I don't remember, I didn't have a chance to go too deep into this, but they wanted to take him out of the hospital. And because I don't think he was listed as an organ donor at this time, but essentially it boiled down to the hospital was refusing to let the family take the body because they had already said they could use it for organs and then change their mind. And they were like, well, we've already got all these people ready for transplant. We can't let you take the body out of the hospital. And so they were trying to argue that in this case, that brain dead is not really dead. And the courts were like, no, that's ridiculous. So, yeah. So Polar Boy, in his argument of what is brain dead and what was the intention of what's the guy's name who's before
Jackson Rogarth,
Rogarth, yeah. They they're all interpreting what his intentions would have been, which is, again, going back to the 1980s when these kind of organ transplants and brain dead versus is it still alive was a real conversation point, because you could say, oh, Matthew's lying there, he's brain dead. Can we harvest his organs for these people who need them? And people are like, well, I'm not sure Matthew would want his body to be used for organ transplants. And it's like, well, you really don't know. So the whole argument goes down to, you don't know what Jackson Rugarth wanted. You are just imparting your own morals and your own belief system on this case, which Polar Boy totally is, in his attempt to force his leadership on everybody. I am the leader. You will do what I say. This was wrong because you killed a man. No, he was already dead. He was already brain dead. So at that point, if he had, I guess he was in the science lab somewhere in one of those stasis tubes or something. It really kind of was up to Brainiac 5 to decide what is the best use of this body. And Brainiac 5 determined that the best use for this body was to use it to take out the time trapper. So I really don't, I think Polar Boy is using this as a way to force his will on the people. When there are clearly, as you said, Cosmic Boy and Saturn Girl saying, we wrote this. We know what the intent was.
And I think that it is definitely meant to be a turning point in Polar Boy's leadership, because one of the interesting things about the Legion, and we've talked about this forever, is they have these weird non-combat people. And these people have a place, like Chameleon Boy slowly becoming basically in charge of all the espionage in the entire frickin' galaxy. Brainiac, as the Legion's scientific advisor, holds a very important role in this weird future team. And what it comes down to is Polar Boy is unwilling to basically to work with him as a leader. He's not willing to try and even understand the perspective that Brainiac has. And Brainiac's perspective on this is pretty alien. He basically says, look, there's nothing to talk about, nothing to discuss. The logic is here. Logic goes X, Y, Z. Now, you were saying that case was in 88?
I believe so, yeah. So this was...
So this may be one of those ripped from the headline stories.
That's what I'm saying. So this was... I'm taking this from the...
Was the Dustin Olson case?
No, this was I'm reading from this from a medical journal. National Library of Medicine is where they're talking about this case. And they're actually in the case arguing back and forth. Are brain dead donors are not really dead, or are they? Or, it goes back and forth. And so it brings up this case from 88. But yeah, this could very much be, and we've seen this before, right? At what point there have been times, and I forget what the woman's name was, but there was also a case, I want to say it was in the 80s, maybe it was the 90s, where she was not expected to live, and she was essentially brain dead. She was on life support, and the doctors were like, listen, this is not in her best interest to stay alive. We need to unplug her. And the family was like, oh, no, she's going to get better. And there was a big, long, protracted court case on, and I forget what that woman's name was, but there was
Terry Schiavo.
Yeah, that's it. Terry Schiavo. Go look up that case, because it kind of probably is a more well-known case compared to this one that I'm talking about, the boy and hospital refusing to let him out because of being a donor. But the Schiavo case is definitely one that you can argue, is this person alive or is this dead? What is in the best interest of the body? What is in the best interest of the public good in that case? So I think if people are willing to make that leap and say that these are things that were going on in the 80s, that it doesn't, and we've seen this happen a lot of times, where what goes on in the Legion is a direct reflection of political turmoil around the world, or specifically in the U.S.
Right. And just kind of looking at it, I feel like we see every once in a while, we'll talk about the influence of books like The Dark Knight Returns, books like Watchmen, things that are meant to give us a more, not necessarily nuanced, but definitely a different moral compass or a different take on the morality of superheroes. And this feels like another example of this is not your father's comic book, because traditionally, as we saw with Starboy in Adventure Comics back in the day, it doesn't matter if you meant to kill somebody or you didn't, you're off the team. Starboy was drummed out for the accidental death of someone who tried to kill him, but Starboy's own powers caused that man to die.
And it wasn't even his powers, right? I mean, it was later determined that it wasn't even his fault.
Exactly. But that's kind of what we're looking at here. This is a Legionnaire who intended to sacrifice Jackson Rugarth's physical form, whatever that is. And traditionally, if I were saying, a Silver Age or Bronze Age comic, that death would have been kind of a turning point where we go, oh, we've crossed the line and now we're bad. Instead, it becomes a turning point where Polar Boy says you can't cross the line. And this issue gives us, and I try not to do this. I really do try not to do this. But this is a big turning point for the Legion. This is an issue that kind of knocks one of the formative structures out of the basis of the Legion. At the end of the Legion's book, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's like 10 issues off, comes because of what happens here. Yeah. It comes directly because of the actions that Polar Boy takes here. This is part of the reason why, when we talk about Polar Boy as a leader, he's always referred to in the past tense as having been a complete failure. It's not a complete failure, but it's a failure where he was not willing to accept any interpretation other than his own, and it cost him Brainiac 5. And without Brainiac 5, the question becomes, someone says it, can we have a Legion?
And the answer is no, we can't, because I don't know. Do people look back on these issues and say, this is Levitz at his worst. This is where Levitz really screwed up and he should have known better. No. And Keith Giffen also should have known better, and they should have had more restraint and kept it more in the lines of what the Legion, is this one of those make the Legion great again moments where people are like, how do people look at this historically? Because I don't look at it. I mean, historically, I look at this as not good, but at the time period.
Yeah, the latter half of Legion Volume 3, leading into the 5-year gap Legion, I find has a lot of sort of, there's controversy. There are people who do consider this last Levitz Keith pairing as a good run. And there are some great moments in it, but it really does, and this issue starts to really showcase the dark side, the nihilistic side of Giffen's stories, because we've seen Giffen go completely goofy, crazy, everybody is a useless buffoon. And to some degree...
Yeah, go ahead, finish up, and then I'll have a comment on that.
To some degree, this is the same thing, only on the flip side. Things are going to be so serious, so non-silly, that it's going to just become stultifying. It's going to be, there's stuff coming. But yeah, this is the point where we're like, we're going to get super serious, you guys.
So listen, I'm not a fan of Chuck Tane. I think he's probably one of the lower intelligence people on the team. But man, they do him dirty in this issue. So Bouncing Boy was a husky boy, right? When he was stupid enough to drink the gin gold. Here they're just like, just slap another 200 pounds on this guy and make him fat. What made Bouncing Boy big was his ability to inflate himself to be bouncing. Husky does not necessarily mean grotesquely obese. And what they've done here is they've made him grotesquely obese, basically negating his powers to change his size from, husky to, bouncing ball. And I think and that mustache is, again, just unforgivable.
This, and part of it is the fact that we're seeing a big change in art style from Giffen and a big change from LaRocque. But first of all, I am never going to use the words grotesquely obese. But this is one of the, I'm well aware of what it is. I am never going to use it. But yeah, I do agree with you. They definitely have made Chuck heavier. And I think it's in an attempt to make the old school Legionnaires look older. Because we also see it with Lightning Lass. When Ayla starts hitting on Paul, Ayla looks like a 40-year-old kind of cougar, and she's a head taller than this kid who's being played as like 17, 18 years old. And she's like, hey, I like your hair this way. I'm like, ew. Because I'm looking at this and I say like your Sun Boys, your Brainiacs, your Lightning Lasses and Lads, they're probably right around 29, 30. Theoretically. And yes, I know they're 157 and the kids are 96, but those are the characters who really are at the point where they're out of their school years. They're kind of dealing with these adult things, and your Polar Boys and your Magnetic Kids are still kind of young and idealistic, college age people, haven't really gotten all of their stuff together. Cosmic Boy actually calls out
what else?
His brother's vote and is like, oh, he's so young. He's so naive.
What other comics were coming out at this time period that would be focused more? Love and Rockets, is that out right now?
Yeah, Love and Rockets, I think, started coming out in like 84.
So there's probably some Love and Rockets influence here in some of the more mature storyline. What else was more like slice of life stuff? Of the 1980s. I mean, I'm not talking about your indie stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Cerebus or anything like that. I'm talking about what are the ones where people were wearing their new wave clothing and having deep thoughts. Those. This is still a few years before Vertigo, so we're not doing, hardcore Constantine yet.
Concrete would have been out in 88.
Oh yeah, Concrete. Yeah, okay.
I feel like the first maybe year and a half of Justice League before it went full on bwahaha, where Max Lord had that dark edge. Was he or wasn't he working for the Construct? 88 would have been the year of Batman the Cult, which doesn't exactly fit.
No,
what
it doesn't.
saying.
It doesn't fit what I'm saying. I'm talking about no superhero stuff. Literally, yeah. Well,
Hellblazer came out that year.
Hellblazer also runs into that supernatural, but I guess if you're looking at and Sandman too. Sandman is kind of in that same vein, but not. I'm trying to remove there is no superpower use in this issue except for the fight with whatever that weirdo guy is, and the Guild Dishpans. That's the next issue.
Of the Glow. Yeah, the Guild Dishpan is next time.
Yeah, Guild Dishpan.
Guild Dishpan.
So So that's what I'm thinking of. Not necessarily stuff that has superheroes using their powers, but here, if everybody is supposed to be dressed in street clothes, first of all, horrible thing,
right?
But if they're all sitting around talking about, gee, what should we do, man? That's the kind of comic book I'm thinking of, and maybe there is. We've talked about the Mobius influence with Giffen, that maybe he's looking to more mature Euro comics at this time.
Well, the indie comics boom of the early 80s, that 82 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, had really kind of mutated. You called out Love and Rockets. Again, there are a lot of supernatural element books that kind of fit, like Scott McCloud's Zot would have been out in 88, which does have one wacky guy, but is set in a very realistic kind of world. And
when did Mr. X or something X came out in
Gene Potter's Mr. X? Yeah, maybe I want to say that came out right about this era, 84, 83, maybe?
Yeah.
Gene Potter had been around. And of course, the Amazing Heroes, the comic book buyer's guide, the people who were like, your cape and tight comics are childish and you're stupid for ever liking them.
Yeah.
Would have been. What would have been out about this time? Grant Morrison's St. Swithin's Day, which is what Morrison did before they started working for DC, what really got everybody's attention. And it was kind of a semi-autographical story.
Okay.
And it was actually really kind of fascinating to read it. But yeah, it was a story with Paul Grist, who did Kane which rolled out of this. I don't know if Kane was in the 80s, but has that same kind of vibe. There's like a whole bunch of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just this. I don't know. We have moved from a 18, 19-year-old target audience, I think, before issue 50 would have been, it would have been much younger 20 years prior to this.
Yeah.
But now you're in your mid to late teens, and this one seems to say, oh no, we now know that our target audience are 30-year-olds, so therefore let's target this story towards a 30-year-old.
Maybe I would say maybe 20, 23, 24-year-olds, because even the 30-year-olds aren't necessarily. I was 18 or 17 when this came out, and the next couple, maybe the next 3 or 4 years of Legion are just hardcore fanboy for me, because they really did at that time speak to my mindset. Like if you're writing stories about young teens, you're writing those stories for the teens who are younger. And if you're writing stories about people who are right around 20, you're writing that, generally speaking, for people about 14-ish to 20. So I feel like definitely this, if you want to know where this Legion hits, where that sweet spot is, it's probably me and ranging about 4 years higher, because those are the people who really remember the Legion.
Well, I've heard it a little bit.
Age Legion.
I've heard it a little bit different, that you're writing at least a decade older than your target audience, because that's who you're looking up to. Yeah, no, that's what I've heard a couple of writers say recently, is that you try to target that.
A writer. Sorry.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, what I said about we're not going to live that long? Wait till the writers hear that comment. Holy cow.
Oh.
Anyway, the espionage back in action, and as expected, there is like no change, right? Brainiac 5 is acquitted by the end of the issue, and there is no punishment, except that Brainiac is like, yeah, well, all right, guys, I'm now in my ennui phase of life. I will now go and listen to The Cure, and I will see you all someday. Here's a little robot. Here's a little robot of of the horror that your child will become, Saturn Girl.
Right? And not only is he acquitted, he has acquitted the team, Waka Waka. But yes, the closing shot of him having left a COMPUTO / Validus hybrid behind to help his friends really does explain why Saturn Girl says in this issue that the most terrifying thing she's ever felt is a hug from Brainiac 5.
Yeah.
He's like,
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would put Brainiac in a sociopath kind of way, like what's that movie that you love with Batman in it?
With Batman in it.
Yeah.
Which Batman?
The one that everybody
American
likes.
Psycho?
Yeah, my American Psycho. I don't see him.
Oh no, you're thinking of Bateman.
Yeah, I don't see him as a American Psycho type sociopath. I just see him as I'm going to get political. I haven't gotten political at all this entire episode. Brainiac kind of comes off as a, what if Elon Musk was actually intelligent? Like, because it's almost like so Brainiac. So like, I think Elon Musk would find Validus COMPUTO a funny Dark Lord edge meme joke to leave behind as he's leaving. Brainiac probably doesn't see it as a joke, but he's leaving it there as a reminder of everything that he's done to the team.
I feel like it kind of feels like it shows his disconnect, because when you talk about sociopathy, you're talking about disregard for the feelings of others, and not necessarily even accepting that others have or can have feelings.
Yes.
And in Brainiac's case, it's literally true, because he comes from a people who are living, walking computers. So a lack of empathy, that impulsiveness of, here's this craziness. But more importantly, when you talk about Brainiac and his emotions, we've repeatedly said Brainiac is not without emotions. much like
he's got emotions.
Spock, he's rejecting them openly. And so I feel like this decision, first of all, the decision to leave the team, which he does later say he regrets, but this decision to leave the team and then the decision to leave his force shield belt with Lornu to keep her third body, her last body, from dying, that's incredibly sweet. His Saturn girl hug, that's incredibly sweet. The moments where he talks about his feelings for the team and the things that he feels he may or may not have accomplished, all of those things, they matter to him. But the fact that, the most interest he shows, the closest thing he shows to emotion is knowing that he predicted wrong when he didn't get 11 votes to save and 8 votes to eject. It was 11-7 because Quizlet surprised him. And it is one of those moments where you're like, oh, he does have emotions. He is openly rejecting them and trying to go back home. And I feel like part of that comes from he thought Rond was dead, so his best friend is dead, and he's crushed. His one classic, lifetime ongoing achievement was wiped away by a guy in a bedsheet. All of the things that he thought were important to him, the Legion membership, they're like, well, you kind of killed the guy. And he's like, but don't you understand? It was the only right move. And they're like, well, you kind of killed the guy. And he's like, but yeah, you can't be this stupid. And they can, because they're 6-level intellects. And it's interesting to see this story play out as both Brainiac being emotionless and oblivious and also not. So yeah, that COMPUTO thing is creepy, but it feels creepy in more of a I didn't even think about it being creepy way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a very like a Elon Musk move, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Elon would do it to mess with people. He would do it because it made people uncomfortable. Probably. I feel like Brainiac would feel bad and go, oh man, maybe next time. But then next time he'd do the same thing.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Why does Polar Boy look like Mel Gibson in this issue? And why does he look like he's about to say something inappropriate to a female police officer?
Well, part of that is Mel Gibson is a big deal.
In 1988, Mel Gibson wasn't the horrible person he turned out to be. So,
right, we didn't know that. And again, when we, if you look at this Giffen DeCarlo art, you do see a couple of things recurring. Is Giffen is trying something crazy and weird and new. And I still feel like we've got a very, very heavy, like the ink line on COMPUTO's head on the splash page is literally like 4 centimeters wide. It's enormous. It is huge. And there's a heavy, thick ink line on everything in the issue. I think he looks like Mel Gibson because we put a whole lot of lines in his face and then they drew them in and it's like, oh, yeah, that totally does. His hair
this adventure... Oh, no. His hair is just like the worst of the worst.
His frozen icicle hair is kind of... I don't like it as much as the shiny helmet, but it's kind of okay.
This needs a frozen icicle place mostly on Brawl as they're trying to figure out why the earthquakes are going on and why all this destruction. And it turns out that good old Gil Dishpan is back, or at least a Gil Dishpan is back.
Yeah.
And they have to fight him to no end?
He's an elemental. This is one of those moments where like, oh man, there's a new villain in town. But he can control earth, air, water, and wind. And what is his name? HYWYNDR. High Winder. I hate him, by the way. I hate all the Gil Dishpan. But we also in this issue have another example of flat out racism. The Gil Dishpan apparently treat Telesis people, the High Crayons, as either like animals to be like hidden away or actual literal slaves.
Yeah.
Because Highwinder is like, oh, I didn't know we let your kind off the planet.
Now you're going to say it like Gil Dishpan. Oh, I didn't know we let you off the planet. Oh, I'm Gil Dishpan. Please don't kill me. Also, we see Lightning Lass and Magnetic Kid. Ooh, you're starting to be more like a man than a kid.
Yeah. And again, 30-year-old woman, 18-year-old boy. It's not creepy. It's not wrong, but it comes across as.
I mean, again, it depends on, who the target is. So if you're targeting this 20 years, you're writing the characters 20 years ahead of the readers. There are a lot of fantasy montages in movies and in certain magazines where I went to clean out the motel room and there was an older woman still there, and you'll never guess what happened next. So that, I mean, this kind of stuff appearing here is not a giant surprise.
There's like a whole movie, I think, where C. Thomas Howell sleeps with Rob Lowe's mom.
Yes, exactly.
And she's played by like Jacqueline Onassis or something.
Right. Also, in this issue, we find out that Telos turns into an eco-warrior, and that Lightning Lass spends quite a bit of the issue defending colonialism.
Which I do not want to defend colonialism. I do not want to defend any of this, but it kind of makes sense from the perspective of the characters, because this is really the point where we're starting to edge toward everybody that we've known for 50 years as, hey, these people are exactly like humans and they all look like Caucasian humans, but they come from different planets with weird different powers. This is the point where we're starting to get the explanation for that being these planets were colonized by humans. You remember when Rock went back in time and met Dr. Krinsky, who looked just like him or looked like his dad or something. We're starting to really kind of kick that point that all of these people, the Bralians and the Tharoids and the people from, well, probably not Daxam.
I guess I'm just surprised that in the enlightened 80s, where we continue to make fun of Britain and their imperialism and colonialism, that Levitz and Giffen would just totally lean in and say, oh yeah, Lightning Lass is pure pro-colonialism.
Well, and it's also, it's the Reagan era. It's that era of American exceptionalism and we can do it right. And, you know, every evil communism is spreading, but we're going to give people the tools to yada, yada, something, something capitalism. And it kind of honestly, and again, not defending it, it does kind of make sense to have that sort of be that in context heroic perspective, that we're bringing freedom to the galaxy. All of these people, you know, you live in this weird backwards planet Brow, and everybody treats you weird, and you're weird because you have magnetic pants and you can't wear a watch. But I kind of get where they're coming from here. And I agree with you. It has aged incredibly badly. But it does kind of have, I feel, at least like an 80s, like last issue's discussion of what measure is a man.
We also get to see Block go through a change. I mean, Matthew, between you and me, who doesn't want to go see the holoscopic periodic tablet exhibit?
Right.
I know. Well, wait. It's in Cleveland. So no thanks. I think I'll pass.
Ask yourself this. Block is a geological life form. His body is made of schist, basically. He is a piece of schist. But more importantly, he's going to look at these. Are those rocks naked women to him? Is he looking
I don't think so.
But
I think he knows the difference between sentience and non-sentience.
But look at his body. Look at what's happening to him. He's getting all weird. He's getting these growths on his face. It looks like he's starting to grow a weird mustache. And he says, my body changes and I'm going through some sort of, this is Block puberty, basically. He's got pimples.
So Concrete is out or not out right now?
Concrete is out in 88. Concrete came out in early 88.
Is this, do you think, a kind of changed to make it look more like concrete?
Oh no. Legion was still one of DC's marquee books in '88. Concrete was just sort of this weird, edgy thing.
Yeah,
And
well,
honestly,
and again, that's what DC needs. We need to keep the kids, and we gotta stay edgy. So I wonder if there's not some kind of subtle move to make him more concrete.
Possible. I mean, this is interesting because it does bring to the forefront. Remember, Giffen has always said, and by has always said, I mean, I've read him talking about the era that he wrote Block as a 12-year-old. Block for him was like Beaver Cleaver hanging out with the older kids. And so what is childhood for a Block? What is, in this case, puberty for a Block? And I feel like they're taking that and they're literally saying, here's this Block. He doesn't just have pimples, he has volcanoes. And so we see Block go through in the next three issues, some big changes. But this is kind of the point where you kind of see at the end of the issue, for one of the first times, he's proactive. Because
where he lets a trickster god.
Maybe have some assistance.
He lets a trickster god con him into jumping into the void. Yeah, that's him being proactive.
That is clearly a leprechaun from the planet Leprechus 5. And he's come and he's going to show you all about Block. And later, he's going to take him home to the Emerald Isle or the planet, I don't know what you want to call it. But you're going to have, and he's going to be like, tell you all, behold all the answers. So the leprechaun has led Block off into a foolish, impulsive teenage decision. Block did something dumb because he's feeling weird and restless and his body's doing crazy stuff. And even looking at the pictures of the naked rocks in Cleveland isn't really helping. If you read it, you read just straightforward, this is what they're showing us. The subtext is, well, first of all, creepy, but second of all, a little fascinating. And it's sad that it doesn't end up going anywhere. But it's neat to see Block in this, like, oh, I'm going to go do something stupid.
Now, this is one of those sequences. This is one of those sequences where at the end, there should be like a stranger danger ad inserted into DC Comics. Remember, kids, don't wander off with strangers, people you don't know. And if Block is one of these young kids, he's literally doing everything the PSAs of the 70s and 80s told us about stranger danger. So,
yep. And this is exactly like when Kelso fell off the water tower in Point Place. This is what that was.
Nobody's laughing at Block, though.
Well, I mean, would you?
I mean, we laughed at Kelso.
Made of stone. Well, yeah, but Kelso can't crush your skull like an eggshell with one finger.
If he falls off the tower enough times and you're standing in the right place. All right, so going back to the horrible costume redesigns, I will have you note that in the previous issue, we were not subjugated to normal people doing normal people's things. Yet in this issue, we get to see a lot of normals people, and they are not dressed like the horrendous things we saw in the last.
I maintain that those suits, none of which fully appear again, were meant to be street clothes because, Ayla does get, I can't remember if she got it this issue or last issue, she does get a new look with her little blue and white suit.
Yeah.
But if you look, Timberwolf is never dressed like Space Alex Riga again. And you do see at one point Saturn Girl's not wearing her ugly pantsuit anymore. Now she's wearing a dress that she made out of a coffee table book that she found someplace. And Dream Girl is wearing the latest from Fredericks of Brigadoon and arguing, although it does make sense that she's wearing purple because she's arguing about whether or not she should be the Legion's chief scientist now. But she's literally wearing like a little bathing suit and hip boots. And again, that's not a costume. Not that her regular suit is a costume, but I feel like this is the Legion's idea of, hey, time off clothes. And I will continue to fight because I don't ever want to look at last issue ever again.
I'm sure you will for nostalgia purposes. That's
I'm
what
sure
people always do. We also get a little moment with Shadowlass trying to deal with the possibility that Mon-El may never come back. And of course, Mon-El does come back because he's Mon-El. But he's like, don't look at me. I'm a horrible monster. And she's like, you've been a horrible monster since the first day I met you. And
that's true.
Then that's kind of all that they do. They're just like, you should have seen the guys I dated in high school. You're fine. And then they just kind of leave it. It's like the story goes nowhere.
It continues. There's more coming, but
I mean, it's really weird how they do it in this issue. It's like when you watch a soap opera and they're like, here's something that happens in 1 hour slice of time. And then they show it to you. And then all these other people are doing things that take place over the course of like 16, 20 days, a month. And then the next time we see these two, she's still going to be by his side. And like a month has passed for everybody else, but literally seconds have passed here. This little sequence that they have, the segue, doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really do anything for character advancement. Doesn't really do anything for character plot.
Reread that second to the last panel.
Well, he's like, hey, I'm going to be fine. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, I've been by your side the entire time. Like I said,
I'm going to be fine. He's like, I'm a horrible monster. I'm going to die.
I know. And she's like, I dated worse in high school. And then that's it.
She's wearing a wedding ring. She cut off her finger as part of the Talakian marriage ceremony, bonded herself to Mon-El forever. She has married him while he was in a coma, which, first of all, the fact that you cut off your finger is disturbing enough for a Talakian wedding ceremony. But the fact that you can marry a man in a coma with the Talakian chop off your finger wedding ceremony is super.
Yeah, they don't make that clear enough. They should have really focused a little bit more on that.
Yeah, and
we should have seen the finger getting cut off. Maybe that's what she's doing in her dark sphere.
We did not need to see her.
I mean, if they're getting grim and dark, that's the kind of the way it was. Also, I think our friend Rodrigo Lopez would love this issue because there's dinosaurs in it.
Big metal dinosaurs.
Yeah, metal dinosaurs. One of them is like got his Zumbas on and he's screaming at the top of his lungs and rocking on his guitar. He's a metal dinosaur. That's for sure.
I'm sorry. What is a Zumba?
A Zuba? What are those pants? Those Zumbas.
Zumba.
You don't remember those? They're like, oh yeah, look up Zumbas. These were like all the fashion in the 80s. With the Kansas City fashion. Oh no. This is like what a rocker. This is what a metal person. This is like a Pantera.
Oh, David Lee Roth pants. Why didn't you just say David Lee Roth pants?
Well, because I was using the official name of the Zubas. So
the official name is David Lee Roth pants.
Yeah, no, Zubas.
Everyone out there just went.
I think they've made a comeback. I actually think they've made a comeback.
They've done a couple
the last couple of years.
If you remember, Joey Buttafuoco was wearing the Zumbas in the 90s.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are ending the issue there because that's kind of how the issue ended. It's just like, hey, big boy, why don't you come up and see me sometime? And then we'll have to see what happens with the secrets of the private lives of the Legions next time on the Legion Clubhouse.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.